All right, welcome back to a Real Features podcast. We are absolutely delighted to introduce our next guest. He's a six-time Logie winner. He's been nominated for a Gold Logie, or he was nominated for a Gold Logie every year from 1997 to 2006 when he won the award. Now, for our overseas listeners, that's essentially Australia's top honour, signifying the most popular personality on TV. He's a screenwriter, an acclaimed stage actor. He's even written and released his own memoir, How I Clawed My Way Back to the Middle. He's acted in almost every TV show of note in Australia over the last 40 years. He's probably best known for his leading role in the legal drama Rafferty Rules and playing Senior Sergeant Tom Croydon in the police drama Blue Heelers for over 12 years. He's Australian acting royalty. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Wood.
Where's my crown?
That's it, exactly. The king is here, Paul Cookson.
That's it.
The king.
It's an impressive resume, though. Yeah.
How are you, John?
I'm well. How are you?
Yeah, going well. It's a sunny day in Melbourne. It's
Yes,
we're
nice.
just talking about grass growing because it is at the moment. You're doing a lot of mowing today.
And I'm doing a lot of mowing. Yeah.
John, as Paul alluded to in that intro, I mean, your career has spanned over 40 years. What do you put the success on?
Actually,
50.
50. Sorry, I should
just missing a decade.
Changed you. Sorry.
Good Lord. All right. So let me rephrase that. You've been on our screen for 50 years. What do you put the success and longevity of your career down to? And you don't have to be humble here. If it's just talent, you can say that.
I wish it was just talent. Look, like you can have all the talent in the world, but you've also got to have a lot of patience and perseverance, and you don't necessarily get all the roles that you go for, or all the roles that you would really like. I mean, I was tremendously lucky in my career to get the role of Rafferty, because I would imagine that every actor my age, and that was back when I was in my mid-30s, I imagine everyone in their mid-30s was going for that role, and why I got it, I don't know. That's and funnily enough, I mean, they'd already made a pilot of it, directed by the writer, who was a guy named Ben Lewin, who has been quite successful in Hollywood, I think, but. Ben actually directed it, and for some reason they couldn't edit it, so they decided to reshoot it. And in the original pilot they shot, Chris Hayward played.
Oh wow! Okay.
Rafferty. Mark Little played the Fulvio character. I think Simon Chilvers still played Sergeant Flicker, and I think maybe even Kate Wilkin played Pauline. But when they came to redo the pilot, for reasons best known to them, I have no idea. But and I had been asked to audition for the pilot, and I wasn't available. I was doing something else, and I think I was actually playing Menzies in The Last Bastion, which was David and Kristen wrote that, and that was about basically the battle for Singapore, but from a political perspective, and so I just wasn't available. And when it came to reshoot it, Chris wasn't available for some reason. I don't know why. And I think Mark Little had gone off to become a famous radio announcer in the UK.
Yeah. And
so, I mean, the roles went to myself and Archie Michael as Fulvio. And I mean, Archie's characterization as Fulvio is probably one of the most favourite of any character on television. Certainly in the time I've been watching, everybody, doesn't matter. I mean, people still ask me where he is and what he's doing. I have no idea, to be honest. I mean, he lives in Sydney. He's a Melbourne boy originally. He's from St Albans, but he's sort of vanished into the woodwork a bit. I know I know he still gets a lot of theatre work, and well, I hope he does. You know, the last couple of years, as you would know, have been terrible for all actors, and
Absolutely.
for old hams like me, it's been a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't
But,
doubt it.
nobody who wants a 76-year-old. Nobody really. It's
Really?
so it's been a tough couple of years, but
Do you feel
anyway.
like it's bouncing back a little for yourself and in general?
Oh, I certainly hope so. Yes, I did some voiceovers yesterday, in fact, for a new series of industry super funds ads, which I've been doing. I've been the voice of industry super funds for about 15 years, and they renewed it yesterday, which is fantastic. So maybe in 15 years, and I'm long dead. You'll still be hearing me say, compare the pair.
Yeah, you're that guy. All right. So just on that, so with the Rafferty rules, would you say that was almost the thing that gave your career, I don't know, like an ignition or a bit of momentum at the start of it? Is that what you're kind of alluding to?
It certainly gave it some momentum in the 80s. I started working as a professional actor in 1970. I graduated from NIDA at the end of 1970. And all I actually ever wanted to do was work on stage. And funnily enough, the first job I did was a show called -5. I don't know why, but it was called -5. But when it finally went to air, it went to air as Barrier Reef.
Okay.
And it was a group of scientists on a ship in the Whitsunday Passage, and they were geographers and oceanographers and things like that, and I and a couple of other guys came in as some university students who were pretending to be pirates, and we tried to steal the ship. As you do,
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to television, and well, my introduction was just slightly before that, because it was the first job I'd been offered. I'd been offered a gig at the Melbourne Theatre Company, or the Old Tote, which was the original Sydney Theatre Company, and I had one of those jobs lined up, and I got offered this job on Barrier Reef, which was Fauna Productions, with a mob who made Skippy.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
And it was the end of 1969 going into 1970, and for some reason Actors Equity, which I'd just joined, went on strike.
Oh, wow.
And I was told not to work, and I got a phone call, not on a mobile. I lived in a share house or accommodation with lots of different rooms, and we had a mutual phone in the hallway, and I got this phone call from the producer of this show, who was a woman named Joy Cavill, and my understanding was that she was about 5'2" and a bit of a human dynamo, but the language that came out of the earpiece was unbelievable, and with the threat of never getting another job again if I didn't. And so it was a very exciting experience. I nearly lost the job before I ever did it. It was also the first time I ever flew. I mean, we flew on a 727 from Sydney to Brisbane, then a Fokker Friendship from Brisbane to Proserpine, and then one of those big Sikorsky helicopters with twin rotors that shakes itself from there to Hayman Island, and then onto the boat.
Wow.
Yeah,
beautiful part of the world, though. That's a good place to be working.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I mean, some of the crew would dive overboard and catch fresh coral trout.
Wow.
Wowzers.
And I thought, what a great job. Be an actor. And of course, nothing's been ever the same. And never
Yes.
that bad ever again. But
Yeah.
but it was a wonderful experience. Yeah.
And off the back of Rafferty Rules, you ended up getting, obviously we've mentioned all the Logies, but you won a couple for that. And then obviously you kept collecting them throughout your career. I can only imagine what your version of the pool room would look like with all the little men statues sitting in there.
Not in this room. There's another room at the other end of the house, which is sort of I call it a library, but it's it's not that much of a library. It's mostly full of records, and
yes.
but they make great bookends.
That's excellent.
A row of books, and they put a Logie up in it.
Yeah.
But of course, whenever anybody comes here to take photographs, they always want to put them all together. So
yes,
getting them off the shelf, and
I use them for shelving, guys. Come on.
But look, I'm very aware of what a great honour it was to win all those awards. It's been belittled a bit. Tom Gleeson's got I don't know what his story is. I mean, I've only met him a couple of times, but he's sort of made them worthless, really.
Yeah. He's a stand-up comedian, so he just puts crap on everything, essentially.
Yes, he does. I really I find his style of hard quiz quite, asking the questions quite objectionable. I mean, I think he belittles people, and that's not the job of a host, I don't think. Look, sometimes it's very funny, but yeah. But I'm very proud of all those wins, particularly when I did Rafferty's Rules. I won Logies for Most Outstanding Actor 2 years running, and when you think of the number of actors that were working on television at the time, and things like Country Practice had been around for a long time, and there were a couple of cop shows, and like all sorts of things, and to be considered the most outstanding actor in that field of people was wonderful.
A real honor, I'm assuming.
Yeah, great honor. So,
yeah,
absolutely. And just on acting in general, I mean, actors all have different approaches to how they go about it, method acting, things like that. But what is your kind of approach? Are you a method actor, or how do you go about getting into a character? You've had some iconic characters.
Did you walk around the house for 14 years as Sergeant Tom Croydon?
Tom Croydon, that wouldn't work with my family. There are no hard and fast rules, I don't think, and I think once you instigate hard and fast rules, it all starts to fall apart a bit. If you decide you're a method actor and you don't go beyond that, if that's what you stick to. I remember we had I won't mention names, but he's considered a great acting tutor, and he helps out all the time on various film sets to help people get into character. But he came onto Rafferty's Rules, and he was late for work the day we were starting shooting. I mean, we'd been in rehearsals and stuff, but because he was so tied to the method, he was sort of trapped in it in a way. Wow. And like commercial television is like a sausage machine. Just if you don't get it all into the skin, it all falls apart. So you've got to keep the machine operating, and there's no time to talk about character, or like it's you've got to have a very clear idea of what you want to do right from the start. From the very minute you set your foot on the floor, you need to that's the washing machine. Is that Is that too annoying?
I can't hear the washing machine. I could hear the dog. What type of dog do you have?
Oh, it's Jack Russell, who's nearly 20, and he's more geriatric than I am. He's got work up. But as I say, you put your foot on the floor and you've got to be ready to go. And
yeah,
this guy wanted to talk about his character to the director for, I think it took up nearly the whole morning.
Oh my God.
That, like that's impossible.
Yeah.
And he was late. He was late for filming because he hitchhiked to the studio, and where the studio was right out at Epping, Sydney, and he actually had cab dockets, but my character wouldn't use cab dockets.
Oh my God.
You're not the character when you're on your way to work. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, he'll probably recognise himself from all that. But
description.
Yeah. Let's play a guessing game. No, we won't do that. Oh my goodness.
I mean, Blue Heelers was one of the most successful shows, on potentially in Australia for a very long time, I think, and probably still is, given how big it was at that.
It's probably one of the best rating shows we've ever had.
What do you think made that so successful? And with the dialogue as well, was majority of that scripted, or was there a bit of sort of free flowing ad lib as well? Or
very ad libbing,
Yeah, right.
In television, Graham Kennedy used to ad lib all the time, but that was a different situation. But writers have pored over these scripts for weeks and weeks, and script editors and producers and directors, and by the time you get the script, it's in fairly good shape. I mean, you're certainly allowed to make suggestions and ask if you can change things, but generally speaking, what's written is what is performed, and there's not a lot of ad-libbing. Very, very rarely. Yeah. And like the reason, most of the time, the reason for people going up and falling apart in the set is, somebody throws in an ad-lib and it's just...
Yeah. Where am I? Where was that?
The whole atmosphere is broken, and I don't imagine that there are too many movies that are made that have many ad libs in them. I mean, I think Alan, for example, who is a great comedian, would, I think his films would be pretty tightly scripted. I don't know. I've never seen it, but
it seemed like as well from Blue Heelers. I mean, it seemed like all the cast had a pretty good relationship. I mean, it all seemed so natural the way you would all talk to each other. I mean, we were all pretty close outside of the cameras as well. It'd be hilarious if you said not at all, but
we were all really good mates, and there's no doubt about that. And like you come to a show like Blue Heelers, and I was. I very nearly didn't get the job because the one of the heads of programming at Channel 7 didn't believe that anybody. He thought that nobody would believe me as a police sergeant because they'd remember me as a magistrate, and so don't give me the job because it's not going to work. And so I was very lucky to get that as well.
Yeah.
Because as I say, every actor my age would have wanted to play it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What a success. Yeah. It was a runaway success for Australian TV.
Fantastic. But, when it started, nobody in the show was actually known to an audience except for me, which...
that's true,
I mean, I'm not bragging about that or being a blowhard about it, but when we all first met, I'd never seen any of the others in anything.
Yeah.
Although apparently William was in an episode of Rafferty's Rules. And
I have no idea who you are.
Right. But then Russell Crowe was in an episode as well, and I didn't.
Oh wow! There you go.
Huh. There we go.
I think William's a wonderful actor. I mean, he's a terrific. He's just got so much talent, like it just oozes out of him, and he's unbelievable. He's unbelievable. Really, really great actor, as I'm sure Russell is too. But I've never come across Russell in the years since he did Rafferty's Rules. But but the producers actually asked me when we had our meeting, our first meeting together. So there was me and William and Lisa McCune and oh God, what was her name? And something, Grant Bowler.
Martin
Sachs.
Yeah.
And so we had a meeting and talked about the first episode, and the producer said, asked what my advice would be to the whole cast. And I said, in my experience, the best thing you can possibly do is make any guest artist feel really welcome. Make them feel part of the show, because without there is no show. And if they're feeling uncomfortable and can't play the character properly, then they're the show suffers. And I was very chuffed to hear many years later, like it's now been finished it was finished in 2006, so it's a long time. And and I still run into people who say that it was the best set they ever worked on. That's where they felt most comfortable, more comfortable than any other TV set that they'd worked in.
Jeez.
That was down to, I guess, like, I'm not suggesting that the actors did it because of me, but you've got to treat those people with respect, because they're while they're not stars of the show and their names aren't up there every week, they're the week that they are in it, they're tremendously important.
Yeah,
and in my opinion, more important than the stars. If they're not comfortable and not doing the best they can do, then you're fighting an uphill battle. I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating.
Sorry. Yeah.
What were you going to say, Paul? I was just going to say, is it time for the listener question?
I've got one more, because I'd actually heard this on, but obviously after 510 episodes, everyone was very familiar of, your role in Blue Heelers. I think you may have mentioned this on another interview actually, but I believe some people actually mistook you as an actual policeman. I think there was a few situations or stories where someone,
people do that all the time. I mean, it's I've had a couple of experiences where I was walking past Flinders Street Station, and this guy who obviously didn't have his Mikey card came out and jumped over the fence, and he landed at my feet, and he went, in big trouble. And there was another occasion where when I was doing Rafferty's Rules, we were filming at Manly Courthouse, and we were filming on the front steps, and this guy was led up the steps, past the film crew, and walked past me. He was in handcuffs and being helped up the stairs by a couple of coppers, and he came up and he looked at me and he was, "I wish you were my fucking magistrate."
So you need to be a method. If you were doing it in your method, you could have,
could have taken the case.
Well, maybe, but yeah. Anyway, but I mean that, like, you become very familiar. Like, I remember standing in the street. I tend to prevaricate when I'm in the street. If there's a choice of two sandwich bars, I can never make up my mind which one to go into.
Yeah.
And I was standing in front of one day, and this woman came out of a shop next door and just took me by the arm and started to walk me away. And when she realised that she nearly died, she thought I was her husband. That level of familiarity is extraordinary, you know.
Yeah.
And it's sort of understandable because you've been to their house, you know, you've
Yeah.
been
Yes.
in their living room every week for 5 years, or in Blue Healers, 12 years, you know.
Yeah.
Part of the furniture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. So let's get to the listener question. So this is a doozy. This is from Thomas Sargent. Sargent. All right. That's a fitting last name.
Yeah.
So Thomas says, hey, with the rise of global streaming services, how do you think this will impact the local Australian film industry? Good question, Thomas.
It is a good question. And
we lost John at a pivotal time.
Oh, got him back. Here we go.
He's back.
was probably somebody trying to sell me some wine, I think.
Yeah. You should take that call then, John.
Yeah,
that's
good. Good deal.
Yes. Sorry. So, so it's Thomas's question is good. And perfect surname, Thomas. I'm hopeful that it's going to be good for Australian television. Well, it can only be good because, you know, to be perfectly honest, the commercial networks, apart from the fact that I think Channel 10 is about to do a reboot of Heartbreak High, the commercial networks in Australia have done nothing for as long as
reality shows, really, and contestant shows. Yeah,
I can't think of a single drama.
Yeah, you're right.
On any of the commercial networks. So, I mean, hopefully the streaming services will be good for the business. And I mean, I've just spent, as I said earlier, I think I've spent most of the last 2.5 years not doing anything in the business. And I've been sitting here on the computer writing a TV comedy.
Wow.
We're about to be in discussions, hopefully, with one of the streaming services.
Wow.
Who are looking for a half-hour comedy. So
fantastic.
So let's hope, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Ding, ding. Yeah. And if it does provide, like, I know streamers like Stan, and they are really looking to do local content and use Australian actors and directors and content, which is great.
Yeah, they're making a lot of original stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the last, you know, little while, I've been really enjoying Savage River. I don't know if you've.
I don't think I've seen that one.
Yeah.
Have you seen that, Paul?
No, I haven't actually.
It's ABC, and I've really.
Okay.
But you know, the ABC. Thank God for the ABC.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's interesting because, I mean, we were talking about the Gold Logies before, about how back then it kind of meant a lot because it was sort of, you had all these massive dramas that, you know, it really was, you know, the best
content was there.
TV, you know, almost actor and actress during that time. Whereas now it's sort of almost just a popularity contest on, you know, kind of it's not really, I don't know. Personally, it kind of feels like it's,
watered down
because there's not as much, original content. Yeah. But,
I mean, I'm very, as I said earlier, I'm very proud of the fact that I won those most outstanding actor Logies because they were judged on the work I'd done, not on my popularity. And in fact, the first Logie I won was for Best Supporting Actor in Power of Our Glory back in 75, I think, or 76, and that was ABC. And in fact, I think it took out just about every Logie that it could win back then. But it was also the first big costume drama that the ABC made. It was, and unfortunately, I don't think they're expensive to make, and I don't think they've kept up their quota. But
no.
It was it's sort of interesting when you see the level of money that has, that Foxtel and Seven are prepared to pay for the football, for the AFL, which, and I'm not resentful or anything, but it's a shitload of money.
It is. It's literally like, what is it? Close to $1 billion. Some of those deals.
Yeah, but they 4.5 billion.
Is that what it was?
And it's going to raise the average wage of an average footballer from $389,000 a year to $500,000 a year. Well, most of the actors I know have never earned $300,000. So I have a couple of times in my career earned that sort of money, but 90% of actors, 99% of actors would never earn anything, and I think that's tragic, really. Remember when Blue Heelers was cancelled because of the football? Question. And the Seven Network refuses to accept the fact that that's what it was. But there's no question after. And the amount of money we're talking now, 4.5 billion, is huge. I mean, it's over a period of 8 years. But back in the day when Blue Heelers was cancelled, the Seven Network signed a contract with the AFL for $790 million for the broadcast rights for 2 years. $790 million for 2 years. I mean, we would have been lucky to have 10 million spent on Blue Heelers over its entire lifetime.
I was going to say, you can make a lot of Blue Heelers for 790 million.
Yeah.
Well, I worked it out to about 75 years. 75 years. My brother, who's a mathematician, a scientist, worked it out at $2,000 a kick.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It is crazy to think Blue Heelers, again, as we said, one of the biggest shows in Australian history, and yet that difference, it's just crazy, mind-boggling, because the ratings of Blue Heelers compared to AFL,
cancelled, the ratings were starting to slip, but it was still rating over 1 million most weeks, and it was rating better than All Saints, which was retained at the time. It was retained because it was a Channel 7 production, whereas Blue Heelers was Southern Star.
Yeah.
Something had to go, so it was pretty obvious which one would go, and we did. And look, fair enough. I mean, I don't hold any grudges or anything. But it's I wish they would bandy those sort of figures about for making Australian drama on television.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And not even if it's that full amount, but just a little more. There's just a lack of investment. Apparent.
I mean, I don't know what the arts budget is for the ABC and all the and Opera Australia and all the major theatre companies, but I don't think that would come to anything like 4.
No.
And we're talking about a lot of employees in those companies and in that industry, and I think it's tragic that it sort of speaks of how little respect there is for the arts in political circles. Yeah, which is a shame, really.
Yeah, I agree. But John, we should get to our movie section. Now, you chose an absolute doozy, a classic. So the film you chose to discuss with us today is Casablanca. Now, Paul Cookson, not to put you on the spot, but do you have any stats? Because I know you had to bring these up and you...
No, that's all good. I'm good to go. Yeah.
Yes.
Great selection. This one is currently rated on IMDb number 42 of the all-time greatest film. So it is an absolute classic, as we all know. Casablanca, the 1942 film. It's currently 8.5 on IMDb. The director was Michael Curtis. It's based on the book Everybody Comes to Rick's, and stars, of course, the great Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, Paul Henreid, and Peter Lorre. And the basic storyline is a cynical American cafe owner struggles to decide whether or not to help his former lover and her fugitive husband escape the Nazis in French Morocco. So great film, this one.
Definitely.
It's a terrific film. Yeah.
And what, I mean, you could choose any film. Why did you choose this one? What does it mean to you?
Oh, well, I suppose it's the film I've probably seen more than any other. My mother was a huge film buff, and she used to collect cigarette cards. Like from when she was a little girl, she collected cigarette cards, and of course, most cigarette cards had movie stars on them, film stars. And I sort of became fascinated by people like Bogart and Spencer Tracy. They were the people that always looked most interesting on those sort of cards. And then when we finally got television, I watched most of those movies in black and white. Well, they were all in black and white anyway. But the actors like Spencer Tracy and Bogart really appealed to my own sense of performance. Not that I'd really given any thought to being an actor at that stage, but I mean, it's ridiculous to say that there's a great naturalism about Bogart because he has so many tics and mannerisms. but there's just something real about his performances, and although you would never, if people showed you a photograph of him as Sam Spade or Philip Marlowe or Rick in Casablanca, you would hardly be able to pick the difference between, which is true of all of us. I mean, nobody would fail to recognise me anywhere either. But there was there's a great naturalness about his performances, and again with Spencer Tracy, there was a great naturalness about his work as well, despite the fact that he was often looking at the desk to remind himself of the lines or looking at the floor, and it's but there was there's something about them as human beings that really appealed to me, and I mean I just love the storyline of Casablanca. Like I guess like many of the people of my generation, with the unfortunate title of baby boomers, it's I was greatly affected by the Second World War. Everything in our household was directly related to the experiences of my parents as survivors of the Second World War. That Mum was had been just a factory worker in Port Melbourne, and Dad had been a farm labourer in Swan Hill on the Murray River, and he came down at the age of 32 to enlist, and that was the first time he'd ever seen the ocean.
Wow.
And within a few weeks, he was on the ocean sailing to Egypt.
Jeez.
Fight, and he was eventually, not eventually, but fairly soon in 1942, he was taken prisoner in Greece.
Wow.
And, so everything about the Second World War and their part in it informed our daily lives, and I was fascinated by this tale of Morocco, like it was such an exotic location, and with all the stuff going on, and the wonderful performances of all the actors in it. Claude Rains as the French detective inspector or an inspector general or whatever he was, and the recipient of Bogart's final line, Louis, this could be the start of a beautiful friendship.
Yeah.
Is, you know, like that was a wonderful performance. Peter Lorre's performance was sensational as the quivering, you know, like a little would-be criminal that couldn't control his impulses and was eventually killed by the Germans. And Paul Honreid was great as Ingrid Bergman's husband, and
yep.
And she was fantastic. And of course, I discovered also during the course of my childhood that my great grandfather was Swedish, you know. So I developed an affinity with people like Ingrid Bergman and Ingmar Bergman, the Swedish director, because of that Swedish background of my own. And yeah, but some great performances in it.
Yeah. Have you been to Morocco, John?
No, I haven't.
No.
But there's a wonderful character actor in it named Essed Sakal. I don't know if you would know him. You're even bigger jowls than I'm. He was known as Cuddles Sakal, and he always Charles moved that much, but there's a wonderful little scene where he and his wife are trying to learn English, sitting at one of Rick's coffee tables, and what watch? What watch? Oh, too much. You know, lovely stuff. You know, it's
yeah.
But those Warner Brothers films of that period, you know, some of the actors that were obviously in the Warner Brothers stable, including Sakal and Alan Jenkins and dozens and dozens of other people. My mother used to know everybody's name.
Wow.
Such a buff, you know. She would, you know, so I learned very early in life to learn the names of the actors, all the actors. And I'm always disappointed the way credits are run on television these days. You never get to, you know, like I can't make head nor tail of the credits.
Yeah, they speed through, don't they?
Yeah. Just
like I said earlier, those people are important to the story. You know,
yeah. Absolutely.
So would you say? I mean, yeah, did that watching Casablanca sounds like obviously the influence of your parents? They were big movie buffs and things like that, and you watched it. So did you think that kind of it really triggered your desire for acting and watching it and kind of dreaming about kind of
to a certain degree? I imagine so. You know, like I also remember seeing on television films like On the Waterfront. You know,
one of my favorites. Yeah,
and you know, I remember. Yes, I was always fascinated by people like Carl Malden and Lee J. Cobb is in that as well. And but I was fascinated by all those character actors. They were fantastic. And I found later, you know, later on that Lee J. Cobb was one of the first people to play Willie Loman in Death of a Salesman. Death of a Salesman was the first professional play I ever did at the Old Tote with Ben Gabriel as Willie Loman. And it's, you know, like, so I sort of feel like a small part of the continuing history of the business, which is
yeah.
How often would you watch Casablanca? Is it, you said you've probably watched it the most. When was the last time you actually watched the film?
Oh, I don't know, to be honest. I've probably got it on DVD, but I'm having trouble with my DVD player and all that shit.
Yes.
I genuinely also, you know, I must mention a film because probably nobody's ever heard of it. There's a fantastic film called The Fearless Vampire Killers.
I'm going to write that down.
It's a comedy. It's a wonderful comedy, but it's It's got lots of genuine horror in it. And the vampires are just amazing. They're wonderful. But it's a movie by Roman Polanski.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it was the last thing he did with Sharon Tate before she was
Oh,
murdered.
wow.
Jeez.
And so she's in it, and Polanski's in it as well.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
it's a sensational performance from an actor named Jack McGowan, Irish actor, who was in probably people that are watching this would probably best remember him as the one of the sidekicks in The Exorcist.
Mm.
You know, he I think he was supposed to be a film director because the mother was an actress, I think, and yeah, and so Jack McGowan was in that, but he was also in a very dramatic role in Polanski's black and white film called Cul-de-sac. There's a couple of bank robbers that get, rob all this money and then get stuck in a road they can't get out of. And yeah, but I mean, The Fearless Vampire Killers is sensational.
Okay.
Full of wonderful, again, wonderful English character actors. Alfie Bass as a Jewish vampire. And the Baron von Kroloch, who's the vampire, is played by an actor named Ferdy Mayne, who's is just wonderful in the role. And his son is played by a Canadian actor, and his son is a gay vampire. And I mean, look, it is just hysterically funny.
Yeah.
Hysterically funny, and that would have been, my other choice of favorite movie, I think.
Okay.
Wow. Okay.
Well, we'll have to. That's got to be on the to watch list, I think, for us, but also our listeners.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a couple of versions of it. Try and make sure you get the version that Polanski had the editorial cut over, because there is a version that was cut by one of the producers, which buggered it up.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Okay.
Interesting. Well, John, we've come to a very special part of this, I guess, interview. And normally what we do with guests, we have a little trivia section. So we've got a little trivia. It's just true or false.
As you noticed,
Yeah. I feel strongly that you'll do quite well. So number one, many of the actors who played the Nazis in Casablanca were in fact German Jews who had escaped from Nazi Germany. True or false?
A couple of them were, but yes, true.
That is true.
Wow.
Off to a flyer. Okay. So the sets for the film were from Warner Brothers, and due to wartime restrictions, they were recycled sets. All the sets. True or false?
I would say that was true as well. I don't know, but
yeah, it's a good guess. It was actually, I mean, it's technically kind of true, but Rick's Cafe was built for purpose. That was one of the only sets. The rest were recycled. So it's a bit of a sneaky one. We'll give you a half point for that.
Yeah, well, thinking about it, that's probably, I can imagine that's true.
Yeah. What else have we got here? So in 2006, the film script was named Best Screenplay of All Time by the Writers Guild of America. True or false?
That'd be a bit touch and go as well, because it was changed so many times, and the ending was changed so many times, even when they were. But look, I think it's. I believe it is, so I'll say it's true.
I like it, and it is true. That is correct.
Hey.
Good stuff, John Wood. Okay, so moving along, Sam's piano, the actual piano, sold for more than $600,000 at a New York auction in December 2012.
Ooh.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, things that I would consider much lesser value have sold for much more. I'd say that was true as well.
That is true. Dominating
It
this,
is.
John.
Yeah.
All right, so lucky last, Warner Brothers purchased the play for $100,000, the most ever paid for unproduced work up to that time.
It's possible, but I that's a lot of money in those days. I think that's too much, considering they had writers like F. Scott Fitzgerald working in their script department. I think that's probably too much.
That's correct. It is false.
Wow.
There you go. John, you win the car.
Flawless.
You've done it.
What do I win?
A
was gonna
car.
say-
You win Paul Cookson's car. We obviously are not sponsored by anyone.
Hang on,
Paul
what?
will- yeah, Paul will give you his car.
Oh, what?
It's a Mazda. It's great. No, very good.
Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, no, well done.
But they're all, I mean, they're all common sense, aren't they? Really?
Yeah.
Those-
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
But yeah, you're right. Humphrey Bogart, he's got such a presence on his everything he does. He's just got such a presence the way in this film, the amount of classic lines that came out of it. Primarily shot kind of in the one area for a lot of it, but just the scenery and everything, it's just so beautifully shot. Yeah, absolute classic. It's yeah.
Perfect.
Phenomenal film.
Strong choice.
Yes.
John,
I think
before
Michael
we...
Curtiz-
Oh, sorry, go on.
You know, Michael Curtiz directed it, but he's the one that is, I think he's the one that's reputed to have said, bring on the empty horses. He was Hungarian.
Yeah, that's right. I heard this. Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing is, you know, like when he said, bring on the empty horses, David Niven and Errol Flynn pissed themselves laughing. And Michael Curtiz said, you guys, you think I know fuck nothing, but I know fuck all.
Oh, that's excellent.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, John, thank you so much for your time. Great film choice. It's been an absolute pleasure. But before we let you go, is there anything that you want to promote or anything you want to tell us about that you're working on or anything like that? We can all go watch Blue Healers again, whatever you want.
Memoir as well, which looks like a great, yeah.
The name of the TV series I've been working on is Home to Roost. I don't know whether that's how it'll go to air, but it's set in a retirement village full of old actors. And I mean, I started toying with this at least 30 years ago, and with a couple of old mates in mind back then, Bob Hornery and Frank Thring and various other people. And of course, now they're all long dead. The current version of it is written for many more of my contemporaries, you know, like people like Max Gillies and Nolene Brown, who's a little bit older than I am, but she's a knockout. And Lisa McKeown is to play her daughter. And,
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
well, you know, like that's if, you know, these are the people who managed to get for a reading. We did a Zoom reading about 2 months ago. The people were scattered all across Australia, and we had Max and Lisa, Lex Marinos, John Derham, Shane Porteous. You know, so it's hopefully they're all going to be still involved. They all love the idea and love the script. So
Perfect.
hopefully that'll get up.
Fingers crossed.
So fingers crossed. We're in like, you know, arthritis. I can't do it anymore. We're in discussion with a production company at the moment, and it looks like we're, you know, hopefully we'll be okay. We'll get it going. And then Max and I are back on stage early next year in Adelaide and Perth in a show called Mono, which we've done several, well, you know, quite a lot of performances of already around New South Wales and Brisbane, and a few in Melbourne, and we're doing that in January and May, I think, next year in Adelaide and Perth, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, and we'll be doing that with Emily Tahini, who you probably know from McAuliffe's Mad as Hell. And,
yes.
yeah.
Mm.
Mind you, she's 4 years younger than Max and I, so
It's diversity, I guess, you know.
stage.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like you've got a few things happening, and as you were saying, and we've definitely got our fingers and toes crossed that show gets up, and look forward to hopefully seeing it on our screens.
Well, let's hope so. Yes.
Yeah. John Wood, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for me too. Thank you.